SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mother said I was gonna be the greatest man alive.
I keep saying to myself, I need to download this song and make it my morning alarm ringtone. Scott Sands in for Richard Cross. It's Election Day. Mississippi polls open here at 7 o'clock, and we'll be open until 7 tonight. We'll talk about that throughout the morning. Man, my wheeze is bad. Selling Lance off the air. My allergies are kicking in. And I don't know if it's picking up on the microphone, but I certainly hear it in my headphones. I've got a horrible wheeze this morning. Man, how are you, Lance?
I'm doing great. That's the Sahara dust, right? On its way over.
I saw that. It may have. That's just kind of a weird story. It's not the first time it's happened, but the coast, especially southern Mississippi, is going to see some of the effects, some of the haze from the big Saharan desert dust storm. I'm going to pull that story and get all the information on that, but it's kind of interesting to track how that happens. You get any sleep last night?
Yeah, well, I took a nap yesterday afternoon like you suggested. That helped. But, when your heart's broken, I don't know if sleep really helps that much, but Mississippi had such an opportunity. Goodness gracious, both teams losing by 1 run, coming back at the back side of those games and just not having enough in the tank. And hat tip to Miami and a really good Murray State team. Those guys played with their hearts and souls and, came out ahead. So can't really complain too much about the results other than I wish it was our guys. The best team seemed to have won.
Just a great missed opportunity for the cities of Hattiesburg and Oxford to host super regionals. Heartbreaking loss for the teams and for the fans of the teams. We were on a text thread last night. I was watching the Southern Miss game. I turned off the Ole Miss game because they were down by like 10 runs and decided to watch Southern Miss. And the announcers on ESPN Plus on the Southern Miss game came on and said, Ole Miss had come from behind and beaten Murray State by 1, and I sent you guys a profane text because I couldn't believe that they had staged a comeback. And then I was heartbroken a few minutes later when the announcers came back on and said, well, we spoke too soon. Murray State held on to win by 1. So that was a gut punch, and I'm not even an Ole Miss fan.
Well, it was a gut punch because there were opportunities right there. You watched, 3, backwards-looking strikeouts there. You watched fastballs, got frozen up there on the last 4 outs. 3 of them were strikeouts looking. And a team that had come back so far that day and had played so well throughout the weekend really just kind of locked up right there at the end. I don't think it was pressure or anything like that. They were ready for it. It's the guy, Kellum, who threw against him for Ole Miss, for Murray State, he'd really done the same thing to him before. So it was when you saw him kind of hit his groove and he was barreling those fastballs in there, you're like, oh, goodness. And then on the other side, Southern had a rough opener and then really played their way back in it again. Just not enough at the end, though. Both teams with great seasons.
I mean, it's just such a long weekend to try to play 4 high-pressure games like that against some good opponents.
Well, especially when you lose the first one. That's the one that gets you,
That sets you up for a long road back. I saw one interesting take on X, and you know how little I know about baseball analysis, but somebody had commented that the problem was Ole Miss relied too much on the long ball, and Murray State was able to just consistently get runners on base to score.
Well, they had 19 hits, Murray State. And I don't know how many I wasn't looking at the box score. You kind of just close your eyes after that when you go, man, what a missed opportunity. But they hammered out hits. That was the thing. And Ole Miss, with all of its power and all of the great talent that they had, Murray State doesn't have some big NIL, I imagine. And, they cobble a team together the best way you can. And that's the beautiful thing about baseball is not every team is built the same. And a lot of them do not have the ability to go out there and just bomb it out of the park and live off of the home run. And Murray State showed you what, just kind of getting out there and playing ball rolling up the sleeves and, just gritting your teeth and getting after it. And again, tip my cap to that team and their coach. They came in and made a great statement. It had been 40 years.
I'll tell you the
they've
encouraging
been
thing
there. So man, that was a great job.
Kind of, we're not going to call Murray State a Cinderella story, but it's nice from time to time, even though this is one of our teams that got beat, to see a smaller school pull off a victory like that in the era of the NIL and the transfer portal.
That's right.
To be able to beat, David versus Goliath type scenario. We saw that as an Alabama fan when Vanderbilt beat Alabama in football this year. Every once in a while, you like to see those upsets as a fan of the sport, and it will be interesting to see how far they're able to advance. Here's what has to be discouraging.
Well, they got Duke, so it wasn't the worst draw. They may have a shot there.
You played baseball, so it's interesting for me as a very casual fan who just likes going to games to watch a team behind so far and how powerless in a sport like baseball it must be for the coaches, because it's not like football where you could be criticized for your play calling or you can substitute players. It just seems like baseball is really, am I wrong about this, like an individual sport where during the game, you can coach your players up all season, but during the game, they're pretty much on their own, and there are very minor changes you could make to the game plan.
Sure, yeah, you have game plan and things that you want to do, like hitting and run and bunt, maybe steal some bases, and coaches are very involved in the game planning and the calling of those things, the defense, where they align and whether they shift and those types of things, and the pitch calling. So they're very involved in that. They have a lot of impact on the game at the college level. But, yeah, my theory as I've coached over the years was always you want to teach them how to play fast. You want to teach kids how to go out and have fun. And if they're looking at me or thinking about the scenario instead of reacting to it, then we really hadn't gone over that enough in practice. So, yeah, to me, practice is where you get the habitual, you get all of the routine stuff, and then you go over a lot of things that are going to happen in games. And hopefully when you get to those games, you just let the guys play. So they're not really worried and thinking and doing all. They're just playing ball. And I do believe that has why you see the pro game a little different. The coaches aren't quite as involved. The players are they know the game very well. They've studied it. That's their profession. And they know every scenario that's gone in front of them, everything that could possibly happen, and they already know what they're going to do there. So they just react and play the game. And I think it makes it, a little bit more of a clean product. But college what's wonderful about it is it's raw. It's this, you never know what's going to happen on a weekend. Anyone can win, and if you don't show up, the worst team can beat you any day, and that's very rare in sport.
Was an interesting coaching decision by Southern Miss, and I think the first or second inning to try to steal a base. They had a runner on first and went for it. The announcers were surprised. I think Southern Miss dead last in college baseball all season for stolen bases. And you wonder how much or if that made a difference in the game, getting an extra out there and losing the opportunity to have a base runner.
Momentum is a big thing in baseball, yeah. When you're stringing things together, and you always hate to run into an out at third base. That's always a negative, especially, the third out at third base. But, part of the game is stealing. Part of the game is trying to put pressure on the other team. And as you do that, maybe the pitcher makes a mistake, or maybe the defender is moved out of the way where he would have been covering that bag, and maybe you hit the ball. So you don't know really what happened there. It could have been a hit and run, and the hitter didn't get the sign and did not put the ball in play, and you get thrown out at second on an attempted steal. So those are the nuances that as you watch the game more and more, you see those things, and execution is just so important in baseball. When the opportunities are there, you really have to take advantage of those, and sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. It's why a 300 batting average in most cases is pretty good, because you're going to fail 70% of the time.
I would be happy if I could ever get a hit off of a professional pitcher. I do not have that kind of
you got to swing
coordination as seen in my golf game. But a heartbreaking loss for Ole Miss and Southern Miss fans, but nothing to be ashamed of. A great season where expectations, I believe, were lower going into the season, and they were able to make it to the regionals, host regionals, which is great for the city. And from what I could tell, Oxford and Hattiesburg both represented the city and the state very well on the national stage, so that's something to be proud of.
Well, and Mayor Tannehill
next season.
Yeah, well, we had Mayor Tannehill and Mayor Barker on, and they were excited. I know they had a wonderful time. And from the television perspective, they crushed it, guys. Y'all did an amazing job. I know the teams that came into Mississippi were impressed with your cities and the hospitality, the food, the people, and in the baseball. But wonderful job, guys. Wonderful work.
There were a couple of off-field controversies apparently that happened, and I know Richard was at the Coastal Carolina games. We'll ask him about that later this morning. Also a controversy, I believe, in the Florida-Tennessee game.
That doesn't surprise anyone. Tennessee, yeah. Tennessee, that's not surprising. It was Wake Forest in Tennessee, yeah.
And Texas proven themselves to be, I'm not going to use the phrase on this radio station right now, but I think they had the University of Texas at Omaha in their cleats, and as a first-round seed got knocked out. Douglas Carswell coming up later this morning. Also, the Secretary of State, Michael Watson, with an update on Election Day. Polls do open at 7. By the way, when you go to vote today, text me what kind of voting in situation you encountered. How are the polls where you went? 601-879-4395. Also an update from the border today. And Richard will pop in, check in, and see how badly I'm screwing up his morning show. Scott Sands, Lance. Mornings with Richard Cross and SuperTalk Mississippi.
Stand for every one of us. From the Venable Glass Trap.
Grab another cup of coffee and start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
We chased Lady Luck till we finally struck Bonanza. With a gun and a rope and a hat full of hope, we planted our family tree.
What playlist are you playing?
I haven't done this. I haven't done this to you yet. I was trying to break you in, brother. That's Lauren Green singing Bonanza.
I love that.
I was waiting to see your face.
Out of the left field.
Yeah, I always do that. I'll pull it out here and there just to get the look on the face, man. Can't beat that. I'm
Scott Sands in for Richard Cross. You can find me on X at Scott Sands Media. Lance is here as well. It is Election Day. Polls open in about 40 minutes and are open until 7 tonight. We'll have election results here on SuperTalk Mississippi and supertalk.fm after the polls close every hour all night until we have the final results. We mentioned at the beginning of the show there may be some haze in the air all week. There are Canadian wildfires, and that smoke is in the jet stream and already visible throughout much of the country. And then later this week, a plume of dust from a Sahara Desert dust storm could create even more haziness. Now, the good news is the dust dries the atmosphere, so it may reduce the chance of rain. And it should look, with the smoke and with the dust, sunsets, sunrises, may look amazing for a couple of days.
Man, I'll tell you, that sun yesterday.
Don't be alarmed by that.
That sun yesterday in the south, I don't know if people saw late afternoon, getting close to setting. It was one of those almost like a violet, real pinky red sun. So I was thinking maybe the dust had made it.
Not yet. I think it's going to be I think the Saharan dust will be later in the week, but there is smoke from the Canadian wildfires that's made its way down through the jet stream already. So a long week of maybe some weird atmospheric conditions. How's the rest of the forecast look this week?
Well, not bad. So far, I think we have a little in the Delta. It's going to be beautiful today. Clear, 91, a little hot, light breeze, 71 in the evening, and tomorrow much the same. So looking good in the Delta. I don't see a heck of a lot of anything as far as the precipitation opportunities out there. So the rain, I don't see much of anything. I don't know where the rain's going to come from down on the coast other than maybe a little wisp that's off in the Gulf. We do have a front coming through Texas, but it looks like that'll be a few days before it gets here. And then on the coast, little PM shower, it says. But, again, I'm not seeing that. It's a 44% chance, about 11-mile-an-hour wind through the day today, 86, 88 range. The PM shower would be tomorrow night. I'm sorry. I was like, that doesn't look right. But, yeah, today, beautiful. Plenty of sunshine, as the forecast says, and around 77 tonight. And around 75 tomorrow night. So should be very pleasant across the state and a great day for an election because we got some big ones rolling around in the state today. So
Yeah, I didn't clip the story, but I saw there's something that's forced down some of the humidity levels, so it's not as muggy this week either.
Oh, it feels great. I don't know what it is, but it was a little cool last night. And I'm not sure about the humidity, but there are no big clouds and cloud cover. So I don't see anything that should really lock in that humidity. And it hadn't rained in a few days, so it's getting a little dry here. Thank goodness, man. Yeah, my yard is actually, you can walk in it, and everything is just not, well, it's, it's dirt now. My horse dog, the ryegrass is gone, and I've got to find a solution for the backyard again. About 2 months of every year, the grass just is gone. It is absolutely gone. Horse dog is eating up everything with his feet. And so we'll see.
Fence would do wonders.
What's that?
A fence.
I have a fence. Yeah, he's got a fence, but he's a bird dog, man. This guy's got to run all the time. So and so when you ask about my night, that's generally how we finish the evening. Is I have to convince him that we're done retrieving, and he has to relax for a minute. And get him calmed down.
These are over. Yeah. It's time to snuggle.
That's right. It's time to go lay up and get ready for a nail. It's so funny waking up and you got the two dogs sitting there staring at you like, why are you up so early? You kept us up too late. So I get to tell them every day, y'all stay in bed. I'll be back later. And but yeah, the weather's been great for a few days, and I'm very happy that we didn't have the mess that I think it was last year and the year before, the last two regionals. Oh man, they were a mess. I always felt terrible for Dixon because trying to figure out when a baseball game's going to happen, when there's 17 of them that you've got to keep up with, and there's rain. Oh man, I mean,
there's rain.
So I know Dixon's going to sleep well tonight. I'm thinking of you, brother. I know how it is, man.
Scheduling mess when you're trying to work out the broadcast.
It has been something else. So I'm happy Dixon gets a breather.
Some random birthdays today on the list. This song is one of the best love songs ever recorded, in my opinion. Dan Hill is 71 today. Remember his hit, Sometimes When We Touch?
I'm not sure.
The honesty is too much.
It might be
both break down and cry.
It's not on my playlist, I don't think, but bring it on, man.
It's a slow love ballad. Denise Williams, 74. Everybody remembers "Let's Hear It for the Boy" from Footloose.
Oh yeah, that's a big one there.
And Susie Quattro, 75. She had the hit song in 78, "Stumbling In," and most importantly was Leather Tuscadero on Happy Days.
Oh, right, Tuscadero. It's been a while since I've cracked open the Happy Days, but yeah.
Chuck Barris was born on this day in 1929.
Chuck Barris. What a crazy dude, goodness gracious. I read a lot about him after watching the movie about him. But yeah, he's an interesting dude.
What was the movie about him? I mean,
it was what was the guy's name? If you wouldn't have put me on the spot there with asking, I could have told you. It was Sam Rockwell, he played the part. Does a great job, but he's a talk show host.
Was it a movie about Chuck Barris?
Yeah, 100%. It's called The Dating Game or something like that. But it's a great feature
he created Dating Game, Newlywed Game, Gong Show,
and a CIA operative, and all kind of other crazy stuff that he did.
Wait, Chuck Barris was a CIA operative?
Yeah, man. I mean, he was dudes. The story behind him is there's so many layers to that onion. I don't even want to start with you.
You were just making that up.
No, I promise.
Chuck Barris was not a CIA operative.
Well, he said he was, and he had quite a bit of interesting evidence to support over the years that he had operated with the agency and did some interesting things and some assassinations.
Doing what?
Oh, well, I mean, yeah.
Chuck Barris was an assassin?
Trust me.
You were just making this up.
No, man, you got to go watch the movie and then go do the reading and do a little research on Chuck, because he is whether he's telling you the truth or not, that's part of the mystery of Chuck Barris. It really is. It's part of the crazy part of crazy Chuck Barris. So. But hey, a lot of people
find the name of the movie and text it to me. I've got to watch this.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I'll get it for you.
That's like this story, and I can't remember. I'll have to look this up. There was a band in the 60s and 70s that was a front for the CIA. Yeah. And like a popular band that had hit songs on the radio in the 60s and 70s, but the CIA created them so they could tour around the world and spy for the CIA.
Yeah.
I got to look up what band that was.
Similar
because I
with
couldn't
Chuck,
believe that story.
Similar with Chuck, but they had him doing some other stuff, a little bit more gun
more
oriented.
Wet work.
Yeah, a little more wet work there. Right. Very
also today is the birthday of Jefferson Davis, former president of the Confederacy during the Civil War, 1808 to 1889. And today is National Egg Day.
Nice.
I don't know where you're supposed to be doing on Egg Day. I don't know if there are any Egg Day carols. If you sit around the Egg Day tree, exchange Egg Day gifts, I'm not sure what we're supposed to do.
There's too many days. Egg Day, give me a break. Hey, while we're talking of bigwigs, King George the Fifth, 1865. Today was his birthday. Another one, the Allen Ginsberg, 1926, American poet. Anderson Cooper, this is his birthday, 1967. They say. So, yeah, man.
I wonder if he'll be drinking with that guy that he always does the New Year's Eve show with.
I have no idea.
Andy, somebody, I think.
What is his name? Yeah. And Muhammad Ali died on this day in 74. Iconic boxer, the greatest of all time, as he proclaimed, and probably was a lot of fun to watch. Can we
celebrate an even more historic thing on this day in history? 79 years ago, 1946, the bikini was invented.
The crowd goes wild.
Jacques Haim, a French fashion designer, debuted a two-piece bathing suit in Paris and named it the Bikini after the Bikini Atoll Islands in South Pacific
before they blew
it up. Bomb testing was going on.
Hey, and Richard, this is for you. I know you're a big musical fan, and this is my type of musical I wanted to share with you today. In 2001, it won 12 Tonys, so it had to be a pretty good one, but it's more of a comedic musical. And if you know who Mel Brooks is, one of the funniest men alive, well, go watch The Producers and Springtime for Hitler, the play that is featured.
I've never seen that. I don't watch a lot of musicals. I've taken a date to Phantom of the Opera before.
That's what you do, right?
And Grease is like the only musical that I know anything about at all.
Yeah, well, The Producers, that's my style of musical, the comedic, funny, make fun of craziness. And you got Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick and Will Ferrell. Mel Brooks is the writer and producer.
So when Richard comes on, you're going to play some Broadway. You're going to play some
he'll
musicals.
Sing it for you. Yeah, he'll sing. Yeah, no, definitely. I'll find like Phantom of the Opera or something for him because he loves it. So he may even sing for us. Yeah.
I am looking forward to that more than anything else on the show today.
We got to get him to bellow. He's good. He'll do it in the breaks. Yeah.
Secretary of State Michael Watson will join us at 7:35. It is Election Day. Polls are opening in about half an hour. 601-879-4395. When you go vote, let me know how many people you run into. If you have any voting problems, how easy it is to vote. Get out. Make sure your voice is heard today. Also, next hour, Douglas Carswell will join us. I'm Scott Sands, and for Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Side of the mountain, where the sun don't ever shine.
From the Seabird. Take a deep dive into the news and debates driving the day. All on your ride to work. Mornings with Richard Cross. Super Talk, Mississippi.
Okay, it's going to be a weird day for the playlist, I can tell.
Only the first hour, baby.
Well, then plus show tunes when Richard comes on later.
Oh, we'll have fun with that, yeah. You got to let the 18 hit, though.
Scott Sands in for Richard this week on Super Talk Mississippi. You can find me on X at Scott Sands Media. Lance, I looked it up during the break. The band that toured for the CIA, Blood, Sweat, and Tears.
Oh, wow. That's a great name for a CIA band.
So I got it a little wrong. The CIA didn't create the band. I didn't watch this documentary, but I remember talking to one of the guys from the band Blood, Sweat, and Tears when it came out. It's called What the Heck Happened to Blood, Sweat, and Tears? It's a documentary, and apparently at the height of their popularity, the CIA forced them to tour Eastern Bloc countries as a spy.
Wow. Nice.
Now,
I wonder what they had on them. Yeah. What did the CIA have on these guys?
I'm sure they had something, but as I was Googling this, because I just put in rock band that worked for the CIA,
it came up quicker.
What other weird story came up first? And that's the song by the Scorpions, Wind of Change.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know this.
There are claims that the CIA wrote that song.
Well, that's what our tax dollars are going for, huh? Nice. Hey, I love the Scorpions, baby.
The exact nature of the relationship and the CIA's direct involvement in songwriting is debated. There's evidence that the CIA did engage in cultural operations during the Cold War, including utilizing music and sponsoring tours by American artists to promote American ideals abroad.
Yeah. They had their fingers in everything, fighting communism.
I mean, the music is a brilliant way to psychologically influence your opponents.
Movies and music. That's the easiest way. Consistency.
Especially during the Cold War.
Well, you create fear. There's a way. I was doing a little refreshing on that the other day. But, I mean, first you create fear, right? You create a fearful situation. You provoke fear, and everybody's upset. And then you basically drip a consistent message consistently, the same message. And that's kind of how you start brainwashing people, I mean, it's not hard, hypnosis and all these things. There's plenty of research done. And if you look at the model of the far left, it seems very similar, that they're taking pages out of a playbook of, I wouldn't say brainwashing or mind control, but definitely steering in a hard direction.
Certainly.
Create chaos.
Sort of indoctrination at some level, whether it's intentional or otherwise.
There you go.
And I'm not a conspiracy guy, but there's certainly one thing in certain media outlets and universities that is tending to have the same effect on some of our kids. So it is Election Day, and a week ago we talked about the complaint filed with the AG Lynn Fitch about the Sonia Williams-Barnes campaign in Gulfport, accusing the group of buying votes through questionable tactics. Story out yesterday and today of the same thing, the same accusations of voter interference, influencing votes in the Gulfport mayoral race. The Democrats are now calling for an investigation into a letter from a Coast casino to employees supporting Hugh Keating in that race. This was posted on social media originally on Friday on Island View Casino letterhead, believed to have been written by one of the co-owners, Rick Carter, endorsing Hugh Keating. Whoever you support, please vote, was at the end of the note. The Democrats say it's a violation of Mississippi Code, which states no employer or employee having the authority to employ or discharge other employees may make any public statement or private and give out or circulate any report or statement calculated to intimidate or coerce or otherwise influence any vote of any employee. Obviously, the campaigns are responding to that, but an interesting way to end the Gulfport mayoral race. Polls open at 7 o'clock today. I'll ask Secretary of State Michael Watson about that later this morning. Also news from Biloxi as the Mississippi Seawolves, which was the first team to introduce me to hockey when I lived on the coast. They're rebranding now as the Biloxi Breakers. I don't like that name as much as the Seawolves, but it's not bad.
Well, I mean, we were just laughing about nicknames earlier in the break, and I was like, Carswell seems like he'd be a cricket guy. They got nicknames in cricket, and I said Douglas the Crusher Carswell. That's strong, right? But the Breakers, I don't know about that. I kind of like the Seawolves.
I don't hate the logos.
I like
the Seawolves
sounds strong.
Was a weird name at the time, but they had a great logo. It looks like the Biloxi Breakers logo that I've seen is nice. It's a fierce-looking wave, kind of an angry or meaner play on the Tulane green wave. Okay. Yeah, maybe like a tsunami. I don't hate the name. The color scheme looks like it's what is that, a royal blue or a bright blue and black?
And maybe there's some like broken bones and stuff that they throw into the water, given it's hockey, and they've got the nice brawl sessions.
The Biloxi Breakers will play in the Federal Prospects Hockey League.
Okay.
And have new owners. And Justin Barr, who is very popular on the coast with the Seawolves, will have some sort of off-the-ice capacity with the team, although that's not been announced yet. So hockey lives on the coast, and that's a good
awesome
thing, I believe.
Yeah, I love hockey. I was telling you in our little random text all over the place yesterday that, back in the old days, in the 90s, you'd go to the hockey game for the beer deals, and you would stay for the hockey match and the fights, and it was just a blast, man. It was kind of, it wasn't like sports was on TV every day, every second, and hockey surely wasn't. So going to a minor league hockey game, the Birmingham, I can't remember their mascot. It's been a few years, but yeah, and I never left in the state of mind where you probably could remember much, but love minor league hockey, and so happy that we have it here because it is a phenomenal sport, and it's so fast. Goodness gracious. The closer you get to the glass, the quicker that game gets.
Right. I still don't fully understand some of the rules.
Oh, yeah, I don't even care.
Icing, and, but it's just
kind of like offsides in soccer.
There's always
yeah.
action.
Yeah,
right.
It's kind of like
the Mississippi State Fair announced their headliners for the State Fair, which is in October. The big headliners, Montel Jordan and All for One on October 2nd. So a little 90s hip-hop, R&B, boy band throwback for the Mississippi State Fair. Corey Asbury on October 5th, Maddie and Tay on October 9th, Tri-State Rodeo, X-Riders Motocross, and more. So that's coming up in October, the announcement being made today. Love the State Fair. One of my first jobs in Mississippi radio when I worked in Laurel, Hattiesburg, was to set up and broadcast from the Hattiesburg and Laurel County fairs every year. And in Laurel, they always had my booth set up next to the Chitlin booth.
Wow. Now, not in the purging part, but the cooked part, I hope. The purging part isn't much fun. Yeah.
I don't mind chitlins, but being next to the smell of chitlins for 5 or 6 hours gets kind of annoying after.
My dad always likes to mess with me and go get your big belly full of chitlins, boy. And I'm like, you've never even eaten chitlins. He said, well, I've eaten them a couple times. Yeah, but if you are ever around, it's kind of like they say, you never want to see the sausage getting made. You don't want to be around when the chitlins are getting purged. That's for sure. Eating them is a different ballgame. No. We had our cooks in college one time, and they got a big mess of chitlins and brought them into the fraternity house, and they were preparing, a nice little late afternoon, Sunday afternoon lunch where we weren't fed on those days, and so they were in the back. And they were purging those chitlins, man. And I got sick watching them. But then they went in and fried them all up. And, it was just the worst smell in the house for like 3 days. And I guess if you get them after all that, they're not that bad. But yeah,
you don't want to be part of the process. No. They're fine to eat occasionally, but you don't want to be part of the whole process where they're being made. Did you see this video that the Democrats and their social media messaging is just so confusing and cringy these days? Congressman Eric Swalwell posting a TikTok video. I think he shared it on his Facebook and X accounts as well. Yesterday, a staffer recording from that point of view walked into Swalwell's office in the House and asked profanely, basically, what the heck is going on with Donald Trump. Swalwell looked up from his desk, and there was a taco, like from Taco Bell, in a wrapper that he unwrapped and took a couple of bites out of his taco, and then the staffer walked away. Now, let me try to explain the reference there. The taco reference is a meme going around with regards to the tariffs that Trump always chickens out. In fact, Donald Trump was asked about that in the White House last week about taco, and didn't like the question very much. And if you're watching the stock market, you can see it going up and down based on where we are on tariffs on any given day. But the video itself is just cringy, and Democrats continue to put out these cringeworthy
subliminal
social media videos that I think make them look foolish more than anything, rather than engaging in substantive debate over some of these very important issues, especially with regards to the big, beautiful bill. And now, even if they're going to vote against it, they're voting for the largest tax increase in history. And instead, they're going to eat a taco on social media and try to get a message across to us.
That's cool, man. That's how it is. It's got to be cool these days.
You got, maybe I'm doing social media wrong, and I've been doing social media a long time. It's kind of weird. Hey, your Mississippi lottery numbers and results next year on Super Talk Mississippi. Scott Sands in for Richard Cross.
From the Venable Glass Trap.
From Duck Hill to Alligator, Mississippians start their day the right way. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi.
Mississippi Lottery information from last night. Scott stands in for Richard Cross. In Lotto America, still no jackpot winner as that continues to build. Now up to $37.32 million. Cash value, $16.72. The numbers last night were 5, 7, 20, 28, 35. Starball 3 and the All-Star bonus multiplier 3. No jackpot winner in the Powerball either, which I think was just hit the other day. That's up to $30 million. Cash value, $13.4 million. And the numbers were 1, 7, 44, 57, 61. Powerball 21, and the Power Play multiplier was 3. Double play numbers last night, 4, 25, 43, 44, 63, and the Powerball 4. Mega Millions, no jackpot either. Tonight, the drawing is $202 million in the Mega Millions jackpot. Cash value, $90 million. The last numbers were drawn on Friday. If you missed those, the numbers were 2, 28, 37, 38, 58, and the Mega Ball 13. Lance and I talked about this yesterday. The Mississippi Match 5 is now at a record high, $1.15 million. No winner last night. The numbers were 7, 8, 17, 27, 28. Again, the Mississippi Match 5 now up to $1.15 million. Rolling along. It's a record-breaking value, the highest prize ever offered since the game launched in April of 2021, shattering the previous jackpot by, more than $200,000 that was set in February of 2023. The drawings for the Mississippi Match 5 every night, 9:30 Central. Tickets are just $2. And if you want to boost your non-jackpot winnings, add the $1 multiplier feature. Get a ticket today at any authorized Mississippi Lottery retailer statewide. And if you want to know how to play and to check the winning numbers, you can go to mslottery.com. And we've got new games in the Mississippi Lottery today. The $1 Double Doubler. It's a fast, fun game where matching 3 prize amounts could win you up to $5,000. And don't forget to scratch the prize level area. You might double or even quadruple your prize. Also, new today, the $5 Gold Rush. Reveal an axe to win instantly. A gold bar stack to multiply your prize by 5, or hit the bonus spot with a money stack for an extra instant win. Strike at which $100,000 cash prize. And if you want to play big, also new today in June for the Mississippi Lottery, the $500,000 Extreme Cash $20 game, which offers up to $500,000 in top prizes, prize multipliers, instant cash symbols, and 5 bonus spots to boost your chances. And remember, don't toss those non-winning tickets. Enter them into the Mississippi Lottery second chance drawing for another shot at the game's top prizes once the game ends. All of that information is available online, mslottery.com. Again, 3 new games today for June. The $1 Double Doubler, the $5 Gold Rush, and the $20 $500,000 Extreme Cash game. Those are all new today from the Mississippi Lottery. A lot of winners yesterday in Cash 4. A Jackson man won $1,600 on 2 tickets from JPK Food and Fuel in Jackson. A Brandon woman won $2,500 on a ticket from Sam's Exxon in Flowood. A Sumrall man won $2,600 on a ticket from Fleetway and Sumrall. A Harvest, Alabama man won $2,600 on a ticket from Sprint Mart in Columbus. And an Aberdeen woman won $2,600 on a ticket from Sprint Mart in Aberdeen. Several cash pop winners. A career woman. I got that wrong. I can't remember. It's been a while. Career? I think that's right. $1,000 on the ticket from in Picayune. Did I pronounce career? I got that right.
Carrier.
Right?
Yeah.
Carrier.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
I think I pronounced it wrong the entire time I lived in Mississippi. A Bay Springs man won $1,000 on a ticket from Keith's in Bay Springs. A Brookhaven woman won $3,500 on a ticket from A1 Stop in Brookhaven. Some Match 5 winners last night. A Greenville woman, a Starkville woman, and a Mize woman all won $800. And a Hernando woman, just over $800 from Tobacco Warehouse in Hernando. A JS man won $840 on a ticket from McTee's Countryside Groceries in Summit, which sounds like a pleasant place.
Sounds like a great spot.
A Wilmer, Alabama man won $1,000 on a ticket from Love's Travel Stop in Loosedale. And Grenada woman won $1,800 on a ticket from Sprint Mart.
Grenada.
Ridgeland, is it Grenada?
Yes, sir.
I second-guessed myself there. I'm a little gun-shy after getting Carrier wrong. Socha, I'm fine with. Gaucher, I'm fine with. Carrier threw me for a loop. A Ridgeland man won $1,500 on a ticket from Kroger in Madison. And Mega Millions A Meridian man won $2,000 on a ticket from Express Lane and Meridian. So a lot of other winners, too, and the Blazing Hot Bucks, Sapphire Blue, Diamond White, Red Hot Cash, Colossal Cash, and the 200X Cash Blitz. A lot of winners across the board in the Mississippi Lottery today. MSLottery.com. Again, 3 new games hitting the store shelves today. The $1 Double Doubler, $5 Gold Rush, and the $500,000 Extreme Cash Game. All brand new today from the Mississippi Lottery. Douglas Carswell joins us in studio next here on Super Talk Mississippi.
Main Street
The views and
Association.
opinions expressed. You're starting your day off right. Welcome to Mornings with Richard Cross here on Super Talk Mississippi.
Our own 008 Douglas Carswell is joining us in studio on Super Talk Mississippi. Scott Sands in for Richard Cross. Douglas is with the Mississippi Center for Public Policy. Great to see you again.
Good morning, Mr. Bond. How are you?
I think I would be Q in this particular case.
Good. Great. Good to see you again.
Let's start with the elections taking place today. Polls are now open, and I'd like to ask everybody who goes to vote today, shoot me a text on the C Spire text line. Let me know how many people were there, if you had any problems, what your voting experience was like. 601-879-4395. Important elections. Everything starts at the local level, and some of the biggest cities in the state today will be choosing a new mayor to move forward. Douglas?
So, I mean, I think we don't endorse candidates, but it's a close contest in a number of seats, and I think it's really important that people pay attention, because the person that you vote for decides whether or not your taxes go up locally. So it's incredibly important.
Yeah, as we talk about taxes, obviously a big victory for the states in eliminating the state income tax and phasing this out. That's
a huge deal. It really is. I mean, we know that the income tax is going to go down from just over 4%. Will be eliminated by mid-2035, 36, around then. And this is a huge deal for Mississippi. This makes the state more competitive. It means more people get to keep more of their earnings, and it's great news. It's been a huge fight. Kudos to the Speaker, to the Governor, who've taken the lead on this. But I think it's a really big deal. It's one of the reasons why Mississippi is starting to really take off economically. We're now the second fastest growing state in America. This is because we started cutting taxes and deregulating. So it's really, really, really good news.
Talked about this a little bit with the House Speaker yesterday. I think that this is certainly going to be a reason for more people to think about moving to Mississippi and to relocate their businesses to the state. What economic benefits are you projecting for attracting businesses, fostering growth in the state?
Well, historically, over the past 2 decades, Mississippi has been a net exporter of people. More people have left than come. I think the official data probably hasn't caught up with the reality. I suspect that's changed. I think more people are now moving to Mississippi than leaving Mississippi. We're a net importer of people into the state. And this is because, number one, we've got low taxes. It's easier to make an investment if you're a business and you know that the taxes are going to go down. If you've got certainty and you know that income tax, which is in effect an addition to the cost of your payroll, if you know that's going to come down, it makes Mississippi a more compelling place to invest. Plus, you've got low-cost energy. That's really, really important. No coincidence that we've got low energy costs, and we've got lots of data centers moving to Mississippi. Big, big, big investments in data centers. So, low taxes, low-cost energy, and I think, thirdly, probably, I think one of the key things is a flexible labour market. We're an at-will employment state. We've removed a lot of the restrictions on occupational licensing, and all of this combined is making Mississippi, I mean, you see it. I travel around the state. I go to different parts of the state, from the coast to DeSoto County. You see the growth with your own eyes. Every time I go to a town I haven't been to for a while, you see new things being built. It's really exciting to be part of it.
And we've got some great restaurants across the state too. I think the elimination at a federal level of no tax on tips, no tax on overtime will also benefit the service industry in the state.
It will. I suspect there'll probably be some unintended consequences. I suspect an awful lot of people will suddenly claim that their remuneration is a tip. But isn't it great? Isn't it good that people get to keep more of their money? It's exactly how it should be. And I think one of the great advantages of no tax on tips is it helps people, often entry-level employees, people who perhaps aren't the richest, aren't the wealthiest. I think it's fantastic. It's great. I'm interested to see the detail, but it's anything that allows people to keep more money in their own pocket. It makes work pay. And one of the things we're starting to see in Mississippi is the workforce participation rate is starting to increase. We historically have had one of the lowest rates of labor participation. That's basically a lot of people in Mississippi who could work are not working. That's beginning to change. And things like no tax on tips will really help that.
One of the things I'll be interested to see is the impact as a sports fan, as a college sports fan, that it may have on college athletic recruiting. If you're now in the NIL era, if you're dangling a paycheck in front of some of these high school players as part of your recruiting, you could go play in New York, but they're going to tax half of the NIL money we're going to pay you. You come play for Ole Miss or Mississippi State or Southern Miss, you don't have to pay taxes on the NIL money you're going to be making. That might actually become a recruiting tool.
I hadn't thought of that, but I mean, I think that adds to the overall picture that the SEC and SEC college states are the place that you want to be. In recent years, we've seen a real increase in the number of out-of-state people applying to come to some of our universities. It'd be fantastic if anything that adds to that is great news.
Yeah, and there's good reason, too. We've got some great universities in the state that have some amazing programs, and hopefully as kids come into Mississippi to go to school, they'll stay here and build their career and life in the state. And
anecdotally, I already know that's happening. I mean, I know a number of people who moved to Oxford and Starkville exactly because of that. They came here. They liked it because it was an SEC colleges with the right values, great education. They moved here. They met someone and they stayed. And you know, as someone who moved to Mississippi and fell in love with Mississippi and has stayed, I get that.
So I've talked about the comparisons of eliminating the state income tax to other states that have done it, like Texas and Tennessee. Have we learned anything from their experience so far?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that is a real source of contention, if you were to talk to someone in Texas in particular, is taxes on properties. People in Texas will tell you that they've had to have increases in taxes on properties, and I think we've got to be careful that we don't, once we eliminate the income tax, put all the burden onto property taxes, because obviously if you've got high property taxes, in a sense you don't really own your property. If you're liable to pay a large amount of money on it every year, you're in effect leasing it, aren't you? So I think we've got to make sure that as we phase out the income tax, the burden is, number one, light, because we keep government small, and that's what was so encouraging about the recent budget that was set in the Capitol. But also, I think we need to make sure that we put the burden of taxation onto consumption. The more you consume, the more tax you should pay. Make sure it doesn't fall on property.
And I think property taxes is a bone of contention around the country. I mean, I don't directly pay property taxes. I lease my apartment, but you know, the building owner is getting those increased property taxes and passing it along to the residents. Yep. So it's something, it's an effect we all feel regardless of where we live. On the C-Spire text line, Douglas, somebody asking about or commenting on the elimination of the state income tax, saying it's really only pennies over 10 years. Is that a valid criticism of this move?
I disagree. I mean, 4% sounds small, but that's one in every $25. If you earn $25 and you're allowed to keep one of them that you were otherwise having to give to the state government of Mississippi, I think that's a big deal. there are other taxes that are burdensome, but it's good to see Mississippi removing taxes on income. $1 in $25 is significant.
So if we're going to kill the income tax, we don't want to see property taxes go up.
Yep.
How can the state protect its budget, which we can get into in a second as well, from revenue shortfalls?
Well, one of our priorities has got to be to set a spending cap, because until this budget, Mississippi's just passed the first properly conservative budget, I think, in a number of years. Until this year, the spending increase had exceeded inflation and any change in population. So the politicians had been spending more and more of your money. And although we had a surplus, they were steadily eating into that surplus. This budget is the first time that they've really restrained spending. And it's no coincidence that they set the budget openly, and as the Speaker insisted, they came back and did it properly. It wasn't done behind closed doors on a weekend. It wasn't done by the good old boy system. It was done openly and democratically. And as a result of that, no coincidence, politicians have been more careful with your money. The increase in spending was in line with inflation, maybe slightly below inflation. It's a good conservative budget for the first time in a long time, and we've got to keep doing that. We've got to make sure politicians don't increase that $1.7 billion annual budget significantly above inflation. If we do that, then I think taxes don't really need to go up. In fact, you can eliminate the income tax largely through growth and without the burden falling on property owners.
Douglas, can you stick around for another segment?
I'd love to. Thank you.
Douglas Carswell from the Mississippi Center for Public Policy here on the Mornings with Richard Cross. Scott Sands, SuperTalk Mississippi. It is Election Day. Look forward to seeing some of your poll place comments at 601-879-4395 on the C Spire text line.
Why we should suffer for this? Don't bother trying to explain them. Just overheard all I've come to a decision on it. Sooner or later, you make me wait. Send me later, let me down.
From the Venable Glass.
Know what's being said in the halls of the Capitol? You're in the right place. Mornings with Richard Cross continues on Super Talk Mississippi.
This hour of Mornings with Richard Cross brought to you by MWG Employer Services. Running a business is tough, and if you're struggling with HR, benefits, and payroll, you're not alone, and that's where MWG Employer Services comes in. They can provide a full range of employer services and a custom plan that fits you. Call today at 601-206-7966 or go to mwgemployerservices.com. Douglas Carswell from the Mississippi Center for Public Policy is on with me now. I'm Scott Sands in for Richard today. Let's go back to the state budget. It ended the regular session without passing the $7 billion state budget, required a special session. What were some of the priorities that maybe should have been included in the budget, and should they be addressed in the upcoming session?
I think it's a pretty good budget. I mean, there was no agreement in the regular session, and this was, I think, partly because the Senate wanted to set the budget the way they've been doing it for years, which is there's no real proper public scrutiny. They meet one weekend during session behind closed doors. It's a kind of, you scratch my back, I scratch yours deal. And then they come out and say, hey, we've got a budget. That won't do. And it wouldn't do for the House leadership. Jason White made it clear, the Speaker of the House, that he wanted to see the budget done properly, and it needed to be done through a proper process, and it needed to be done openly. And he stuck to his guns on that. And the Senate called his bluff, and the House literally walked away. And So they all had to come back in a special session. And as a result of that, I think we've got a pretty good budget. It's $7.1 billion, which is lower than some people wanted it. A lot of the pet projects that various people probably wanted, which they would have included if it had been done behind closed doors over the weekend, weren't included, and that's right. It's taxpayer money, and these are billion-dollar decisions. You wouldn't put up with a group of people running your local booster club without accountability. So you certainly shouldn't allow your lawmakers to set $1 billion worth of tax spending without proper accountability. So I think Jason White called it right, and I think he's been proven right. And I think for the first time in a long time, we've got a conservative budget as a result of that. I think it's significant not just because it means that politicians are restraining the way they spend your tax dollars. I think it's indicative of a shift in Mississippi politics where people just aren't prepared to do politics like it's 1960-something. And I think this is probably quite difficult for some in the Senate to come to terms with. They're so used to the kind of good old boy way of doing it. It's quite painful, perhaps, to have to do it this way. But I think Jason White represents a new generation of Mississippi leaders that are coming to the fore that just aren't prepared to be casual with your tax dollars. And I think this is really significant and really important and great news for Mississippi taxpayers.
As we talk about the transparency of the process, though, I do think it may have been somewhat rushed in a just over 2-day special session. I think this is something that needs to be discussed. Now, the downside of that is the more conversation that's had, the more amendments that can be introduced, and the more spending that seems to worm its way into the process. But I think it should be a little bit more deliberative and should be handled during regular session.
Sure. I mean, you've got 3 months to do it. I hope the takeaway from this is that next session, the Senate won't leave it to the last minute, that they will, on day one, publish a proposal, and they'll use some of the 3 months they've got to discuss this in a sensible way. The real problem comes from the idea that you can do it in the, I think, penultimate weekend of the regular session. That's been the problem. So yeah, put it on the agenda, but don't try and play clever games with it. Don't try and play hardball in a tussle with the House on this. I don't think it works. I mean, there was an attempt, wasn't there, to try to, in the last minute also, take away some of the critical funding needed to make sure that the state auditor's office could keep tabs on what people are doing with public money. I mean, that kind of harebrained idea that you could somehow do this without consequences. I mean, I think that backfired very badly on those in the Senate that tried to do it. They looked ridiculous, frankly. But that's all the more reason why next year the budget should be printed early. A draft proposal from the House and the Senate should be put on the table early, and there should be time set aside during regular session to deal with it.
Get it done early. And also address some of the other critical issues the state's facing, school choice being one of those. Tell me what your plan would be from the Mississippi Center for Public Policy for school choice.
Well, about roughly $3 billion of the $7.1 billion is education funding. At the moment, that money basically goes from the government of Mississippi to various school boards, and it doesn't always end up in the classroom, and it certainly doesn't always get spent as wisely and efficiently as it should. So our idea is that every student in Mississippi, and we've got a new funding formula so we know the dollar amount for every child in Mississippi, we think that parents should be given control of their child's share of tax dollars, and they should be able to allocate those. That's roughly $7,000 a year. That $7,000 a year should be put into a bank account called an ESA, an education savings account, and we think that families should be allowed to then spend that $7,000 at a school that they want. If you're happy with the public school where your child goes, great, fantastic, stay there. That's not a problem. You can. It'll still be there. If, on the other hand, you want to spend a portion of that $7,000 on something slightly different, you want your child to, I don't know, learn Spanish rather than French or whatever it is, you can use a bit of that. If, on the other hand, you want to take your child and use that money to go to a private school, we think you should be able to do it. Or a charter school, you should be able to do it. It's ultimately your money. It's your child's $7,000. And we think that you would be better at spending that money than the government of Mississippi. And I think if you look at all the states around us, Arkansas has exactly this model. Alabama now has this model. Tennessee has this model. Louisiana's
Mississippi's kind of become an island unto itself.
Yeah, and
we've kind of become an island without the option.
Yeah, it should be second nature to conservatives to recognize that families are better at making these decisions for themselves than politicians. So I think there's going to be enormous pressure in the 2026 session to support Donald Trump's policy on school choice. Trump has been emphatically in favor of this proposal that I've outlined. And I think we need to just do it. And we need to allow families to control that $7,000. Think of the change that it would mean. Take someone like Hinds County. Imagine that you're a family in Hinds County who wants the best for your kids. What are your options? Well, you don't frankly have many. You can go to a school that you probably might not want to go to, or you can move out of Hinds County. That's not a great series of choices for families. If you gave every family in Hinds County control of $7,000 per student, that would transform their options. They could suddenly go to a whole range of schools that probably right now don't exist. That's the sort of transformative change that we need in Mississippi.
So what's been the resistance to these ESAs, and how do we overcome that resistance and overcome those challenges?
I mean, to be brutally honest, the main resistance to this comes from the school superintendents. These are the officials who run the school boards, some of whom earn more every year than the governor does. They're often very highly remunerated, and they don't like losing control of their multi-million-dollar budgets. That's understandable. Turkeys don't vote for Christmas, but Christmas still happens. Christmas has to happen on this occasion. There are some legitimate concerns from what you might call rural families, rural Republicans, who worry that perhaps because they've got good education in their public schools, that perhaps if you changed it, you would upset a system that works. And I think the answer to that is to say, look, if it works, if it's a great school, if it's really as good as you say it is, then no one's going to want to opt out. So you've got nothing to fear. You can't have it both ways. You can't on the one hand say everything's fine and dandy and the local schools are excellent, and then on the other hand fear that people would want to offer an alternative for their child. So I think there are some legitimate concerns, and there's some scaremongering, frankly. A lot of the progressives and a lot of the vested interests in this don't want the change because they like having control of the dollars. We think families should take control.
Their power. It affects their power, affects their pocketbook. Yeah, absolutely. We need to give our parents more control over their kids' education. Yeah. So many other things that we could talk about that should be legislative priorities. PBM is a hot topic, Medicaid expansion, and more. Douglas Carswell, the Mississippi Center for Public Policy, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you.
We'll talk soon. Scott Sands in for Richard Cross. Mississippi's Secretary of State Michael Watson will join us at his Election Day. Polls are open until 7 tonight. We'll have all of the results on all of the SuperTalk Mississippi radio stations across the state. And, of course, at supertalk.fm as soon as the polls close and until final results are tallied. Be sure to follow us on social media as well for updates throughout the night. And if you go vote, I want to hear what your experience was like. How many people are out voting today? 601-879-4395 is the C-Spire text line.
This segment of Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Get the inside track on Mississippi politics. Yeah! Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
You know, if we had time, Lance, I would wait till the whole rap part of this song by Blues Traveler. Scott Sands in for Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi. I've been asking for your voting experience all morning when you go to the polls to vote. I'd love to hear how many people were out actually turning out to vote. If you had any problems on the C-Spire text line 601-879-4395. Someone voting at Brookhaven Ward 4. Everything was smooth. 50th person to vote at 7:20. No line or wait time. That's great to hear. And thank you for going out to vote. We'll have all of the election returns on SuperTalk Mississippi, supertalk.fm throughout the night, as soon as the polls close tonight at 7 o'clock. Secretary of State Michael Watson is joining me now. Mr. Secretary, it's great to meet you. How are you, sir?
Man, I'm well. I appreciate the Blues Traveler music as well, so we should have let that play through.
Well, that was for you, sir. That's the hook. You know, every election we have you back, and that's the hook. And I love talking to you anyway.
I think you're checking in with Gerard later today as well with a midday update on elections. But before we get into that, you're an Ole Miss guy. Heartbreaking loss last night in Oxford.
You know what? I made my daughter, my oldest daughter, she's as big a fan as I am, if not bigger. I made her sit there and watch that. She said, Dad, turn it off, turn it off. I was like, no, you need to sense this. You need to feel this. These losses hurt, but they make the wins that much more fun. So it was a tough one. I hated that. I thought we could pull it off yesterday. And then Southern Miss, watching Southern Miss, them falling down as well. A tough weekend for Mississippi baseball.
Yeah, it was a heartbreaking loss both games last night, and I got so excited. I told Lance and Richard this. I was watching the Southern Miss game, and the announcers came on and said Ole Miss had come back and won. And I was like, holy cow. That was like an 11-point lead. And then a few minutes later, whoops, we spoke too soon. Murray State held out. But I got to tell you, Oxford and Hattiesburg look great, and I've heard nothing but fantastic reviews about hosting the regionals.
Oh, phenomenal showcase there of our baseball cities. And again, we do it right here in Mississippi. I love when the spotlight is on us. It's bright, and we always respond very well. So proud of Hattiesburg and Oxford and the show that they put on. And Mississippi State, look, another great baseball school and got a new coach there. So look forward to them doing well. And it's fun to cheer for all of our schools. We've got some great schools, great baseball. Not only that, but our community colleges, and they're doing well as I think Pearl River, I can't remember if they played already or not, but for the title there. So and some others. So we're proud of our Mississippi schools.
All right, so let's get down to business. It's Election Day. The polls are open. What are you hearing from around the state?
Yeah, we've got folks out, and again, I think it's important that we always talk about integrity of the process, and we don't just talk about it, we do it. We're in the precincts, we're around in multiple cities today. We've got close to 200 municipalities that are holding elections, and so we've got folks out from North Mississippi down to South Mississippi, all over the place. And many times we hear kind of hot spots. Folks will call and say, hey, look, I'm hearing this going on. Could you please send somebody for elections? And obviously we can't cover every city on Election Day, but we try to get as many as we can just to make sure people are seeing the Secretary of State's office is there. We're watching you. And people kind of tend to be a little less mischievous when they know they're being watched. So hopefully everything will go well today. And just so proud of our clerks around the state, our municipal clerks, and the work that people put in to run these elections. The poll workers today, those are our unsung heroes, and just thankful for them and the work they do. Couldn't have elections without them. So hope everybody is prepared today. Make sure that you're researching your candidates. There's still time to go do that before you go vote. But most importantly, just remember the men and women who fought and died for that right. Let's not take it for granted. And these municipal elections are the ones that are the most important, in my mind, that we overlook. You think about your policemen, your firefighters, your public services there at the local level, your safety, obviously. Those are important things, and we need to think about that as we go on this election day for our municipal election.
Yeah, the local elections are so critical, and everything starts on a local level. So these elections are very important. They don't get the attention of a national election, of a presidential election, but they're certainly as important, if not more so. You mentioned election integrity. What has Mississippi done to protect the integrity of elections, of voting in the state?
Yeah, so look, we've got a laundry list that we could walk through. Really proud of our team. When we came in, and back in 19, on the campaign trail, I really started talking then about making sure that only United States citizens could vote in our elections. And that was people were like, Michael, why are you doing this? This is not a big, important issue. Look at it now. We were on the front end of that, and I've been to multiple states now to talk about what we're doing here in Mississippi. We talk about our post-election audits, making sure that we go through and make sure our clerks and our commissioners and our poll workers and everybody follow the law. made sure that they, ran the election by the law here in Mississippi. We talk about our new machines. We talk about so many things that we've been able to get through the legislature. And again, a lot of credit to the legislature for listening to our ideas and getting them passed. So I can, it takes probably more time than we have to walk through each and every one. But we also have been on the national level on different issues. People are talking about our post-election audits, and we've spoken in different states about that. So many things that we're doing, banning ranked choice voting. I mean, I could spit out a bunch of them, and it's been really. You talk about our help in the legislature. I can't give them enough credit for going through that and getting that done with us as well.
It should be easy to vote and hard to cheat in Mississippi and around the country. Tell me about the machines, and let's dispel some of the conspiracy theories. Are the voting machines hackable? Can Elon Musk log in and change everybody's votes? Are they secure?
Absolutely, and that's one of the things we did, coming into 2020. We had a great election here in Mississippi, and a lot of folks had questions about the machines. And, we didn't have any of the machines that had issues that folks want to, Dominion, and et cetera. And also, you can't hack a machine, unless you can hack into a jack in the wall. You can't get in there. And some of the research that people have said, well, look, these folks had machines and were able to change them. Well, yeah, the ones that did that, they had unlimited access to the machines. They had all of the manuals. They had all of the passwords. They had everything you could think of about the machines. And, again, unlimited time to get into those. So it would be incredibly hard for anybody to go into a machine, to hack it, to change it, any of the outcomes. And then you look at it now. One of the things the legislature said, when you buy these new machines, if you want to use the dollars that we're going to give you for these grant processes, it cannot connect to the Internet. They have to have a paper verifiable trail. And I just want to remind every Mississippian, every machine that is in use right now in this state has a paper verifiable trail. So if there's ever any questions, we can always go back to that paper to say, look, here's the vote. If you got a question about the machine, here's the paper ballot, the backup proof, and you can't change the paper. So I want to make sure that people understand that. And again, just bringing the confidence back to our elections process after so many questions were had following 2020. Mississippi has done it right, and we'll continue to do it right.
How clean are the voter rolls in the state?
That's one of the issues that we focused on early on. We still got work to do. When I came in, there were 43 of the 82 counties, had 90% or more of the voting age population on the voter rolls. 7 counties had 100% or more, which is obviously an issue. So we sent letters to all of those 43 counties. We also started putting their numbers on the website. So you can go to the Secretary of State's website. Each month, every county's number is updated every month. So if you're looking at, high 90s or 100% or more, that means your elections commissioners are not doing their jobs. And I think that's one of the more important things there, Scott, when we talk about educating Mississippians on the process, our Elections 101 campaign, where we try to walk through from the time that you register to vote to the time that you cast your ballot to the time it's counted, who's in charge of what. Because when Mississippians understand the process and they know where the pinch points are and they know who to hold accountable for what, we'll get a better process. And we also get better elected officials. So we're down now to probably around the 20-ish or so in the 90s, and then 2 in the 100 or above. Again, I don't have the constitutional nor statutory authority to force election commissioners to do their jobs. That's the people of Mississippi. That's why elections are so important at every level, including this local level. So, we got to get a little more work on those 22, 3, 4 counties, but we're getting there. And so I continue to encourage Mississippians to hold their elections commissioners accountable to clean these voter rolls.
Jackson and Gulfport obviously getting a lot of attention statewide in their mayoral elections, but 200 municipal elections around the state. How has voter turnout been for these mid-year elections? I know it's always lower in primaries and off-year elections. It's so important to get out to vote today, though.
That's right. Typically, these municipalities, folks just take them for granted. Again, folks that are paying attention understand the power of a city government, the things that they can do, including raise your taxes. You understand this can impact your life much more quickly, again, than a federal or a state election. So I encourage folks to get out and vote. And unfortunately, too many times we see very low numbers. There are not runoffs for municipal general elections, so people need to understand this is your chance to go have your voice heard. So I encourage folks to get out. And again, unfortunately, we just see these low numbers too many times in municipal elections, not just municipal elections, elections in general. So we've done a lot of work to try to educate our younger Mississippi citizens, school-age young individuals to, hey, look, why is it so important to go vote? And how do we get them engaged in the process? So we've done a lot of work at the Secretary of State's office getting our young Mississippians engaged, and I think it's going to have bear some good fruit from days to come.
Secretary of State Michael Watson here, Mornings with Richard Cross from Scott Sands. Quickly, Michael, tell us if anybody runs into any problems at the polls, how can they file a complaint or get something done about it?
Yeah, so most important, we've got a new tool that we can use now. It's a text line, so 601-586-7600. Any problems that you see, you can text that, and obviously you can call us 1-800-829-6786.
From the Venable Glass Traffic.
Mississippi in the know. One morning at a time. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
This might be a forgotten Third Eye Blind song, but I think it's their better song.
Best song.
Scott Sands, and for Richard Cross, Lance is here as well. Super Talk Mississippi. Lance, you're not going to believe what you can bet on now. I've mentioned some of the wagering sites like Kalshi and Polymarket before. Oh, yeah. I told you I bet on the next pope. This is an actual bet you can make. Will Jesus Christ return in 2025?
I'm going to go with no on that. But
that's
what am I standing to win?
People are actually putting money on this, and for some reason, it's interesting to watch because in real time you can see how people are betting, and for some reason it jumped to just over 5% in April, and again for the last week in May it was closer to around 4%. Right now, it's a 3% chance that Jesus will return in 2025. But wow. You can put, I guess with a 97% payoff, you could put money on yes. I just
but
don't
if he
know
comes back, you're not collecting.
Paid.
Yeah, you're not
right.
collecting, right?
How do you collect on that if you actually win the bet? So it's a very weird thing to bet on.
It sounds very pointless, but okay. Hey, you can die rich and can't carry it with you, I guess.
I mean, I guess it's like some of the games that you see if you had online sports wagering apps available to when you see a game where you can bet the money line and it's minus 3,000. If you put enough money, I guess, on no at 3%, you could make some money, but you would be risking a lot. Although, again, if you lose the bet, are you really having to pay that off too? Although I think the money has to be in the account before you can wager.
Right. They got you on that one. They're going to make sure you have the money, even though you won't get the money. And if you do get the money, and Armageddon does happen, maybe you can buy you one of those Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome type trucks or something. I don't know. You got to barter then. I think it's Barter Town is what they call it.
It might be one of the strangest bets I've ever seen online.
What is it up to now? I wasn't able to find it the other day when I was looking for the convicts.
I'll have to pull up my app for that. It's Kalshi. But remember, I said that I bet on Antoine Massey being the next convict to be caught, and he's one of the two that remains at large after 3 weeks. And this is interesting. Yesterday, this is the world we live in now. One of the two escaped guys from the Orleans Parish jail posted on Instagram last night.
Yeah, they're getting some clicks.
Did you see this video?
No, I didn't. No,
I was going to send it to you and try to pull the audio off. I'll send it to you.
I saw something. Was it yesterday or the day before? One or two of them had posted something, and I didn't really pay much attention to it. I was just like, yeah, the dumb criminals doing dumb things. But these guys must be pretty smart to stay in evade law for several weeks. I mean, that's not an easy thing to do.
So I've got to assume that the FBI has the technology to look at the metadata on this Instagram post to figure out maybe from where it was posted or maybe use that to try to track this guy down.
Well, if he's smart, he's using that as a decoy too. You know?
Yeah, it could be. Or you send the video to somebody else. I'm sure there are ways the FBI could track this down. But I didn't send it to you because it was like a 9-minute long video, and there was a lot. You would have had to do some major editing to get rid of some of the foul language in the post anyway. But obviously, he's claiming he's innocent. First of all, that he was wrongly sent to jail, and a lot of convicts and criminals will do that. He said he was let out of jail. He said they said I escaped, right? But I was really let go. And he claims that the domestic abuse battery charge that kept him in jail was based on a false report from a jealous girlfriend. And he holds up what he says is paperwork proving that she was jumped by peers and not him. Again, you can take this because it has a long rap sheet. Take it for the grain of salt for what it's worth, but he's claiming he's innocent, and he goes on to beg for help from Meek Mill and Lil Wayne and other rappers who have been in jail, and asks for help from President Donald Trump from whenever he is caught and captured and put back in jail.
I don't think that's how it works, but okay.
It's just a long, rambling video. I mean, we live in a timeline, though, Lance, where 50 Cent is telling President Trump not to pardon Diddy. That's the timeline and the world we're in now, where there's just weird stuff happening. The sheriff of Orleans Parish, Susan Hudson, did comment on the Instagram video saying if the individual depicted in the video is indeed Antoine Massey, we strongly urge him to come forward and turn himself in to the proper authorities. Cooperating with law enforcement is in his best interest and may help avoid additional charges. It's important that justice is served appropriately and that due process is followed. I think they're eventually going to close in on these two remaining suspects who are at large. And obviously, if you know anything, call Crime Stoppers or the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Department and help get these guys apprehended and back behind bars where they belong. But you can find that Instagram video. Just if you go to any social media platform, search for Antoine Massey, and it will come up. I will send you the link, Lance. I'll repost it as well on X at Scott Sands Media. Art Del Cueto, a Border Patrol agent, will check in with us now. We'll talk about securing our border and some of the immigration raids that ICE is conducting. Next, he's in Arizona, and will tell us what his Border Patrol agents are encountering now and how much morale has improved under President Trump. Fox News and SuperTalk Mississippi News here at the top of the hour.
Know where the news is going next. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Your playlist has been all over the place this morning, Lance.
Thank you.
I'm Scott Sands, and for Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi. Polls are open across the state until 7 o'clock tonight. Love to hear your experience, how many people are out voting at your polling place. If you have any problems, C-Spire text line 601-879-4395. We'll have all the returns after the polls close tonight on all of the Super Talk Mississippi stations and, of course, at supertalk.fm. Art Del Cueto is joining me now, former agent and border advisor to the Federation for American Immigration Reform. Art, it's great to see you, my friend. How are you?
Good, my buddy. Thank you so much for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
You and I have been friends for years now, but for the people in Mississippi, first time maybe that you've been on the radio here, tell us about your experience as an agent. And I love hearing the story about how really morale has changed over the last few months.
So I've been an agent for 22 years out on the southern border. So I've been through a lot of different administrations. So the morale's always been, an up and down roller coaster depending on who's in office. But I can tell you under President Trump, we've never seen the morale as high as it is now because agents are wanting to do their job. What a crazy idea, right? These guys actually want to work. So the morale has changed. Obviously, you know that you got the great, beautiful bill coming out that helps the agents and gives more money to them. At the same time, it protects their retirement and their future. So, I've never seen the morale as high as it is now. Immigration's always been at the forefront for several years now. It's been a big issue. Unfortunately, you have those on the left that don't understand that border security is important. So, I mean, I've gotten a lot of opportunities now to be able to spread the word and be able to tell people, hey, this is the reality, but we need to keep moving forward. We can't just stop there. And a lot of that is, now that the numbers are down on the southern border and the northern border, we need to start figuring out the millions upon millions that were allowed in during the Biden administration. We need to find out where these people are.
And I want to talk about that in a second, especially after yesterday's major raid by ICE. But what the heck did the Biden administration have you guys doing on the border? Because just in 4 months, we've seen a 95% drop in illegal encounters.
So under the Biden administration, most of it consisted of processing and being stuck in processing centers. Because of that, there was widespread word that said all you had to do was come across, ask for asylum, and you would be released in the U.S. So what happens is the drug cartels take advantage of that. So they utilize people almost as bait, and they would send big groups to different parts of the border, turn themselves in. They knew Border Patrol had to respond to those areas. Once Border Patrol responded, they had to take them into the processing center. So they were stuck in processing centers the rest of the shift, changing diapers, making bottles for some of these children that were coming across with these families. And all the while, when that was happening, the border was wide open, and the drug cartels took advantage of bringing drugs across once they saw that people were being taken care of by the agents. And you got to remember, the drug cartels, this is something that a lot of people don't know. The drug cartels in Mexico, specifically the Sinaloa cartel, it works and deals with 168 different countries worldwide. So that is one large criminal entity.
In addition to, obviously, securing the border and reducing the number of illegals coming across, there was a headline, I think 2 days ago, I believe in the New York Times, and I'm going to get the exact headline wrong, but the headline was something along the lines of drop in fentanyl trafficking and overdose deaths in the U.S. is down, and we don't know why. Really, I think it's pretty obvious the reason why. If you cut off the supply, the overdose deaths are going to go down, and the number of the amount of drugs in this country illegally will go down. It seems pretty obvious to me.
Absolutely, and look, in a lot of these places, a lot of these drug dealers are being apprehended, and a lot of these individuals that were dealing, the fentanyl in the streets, many of them have gone to hiding. I get asked sometimes, well, what do you think? The numbers. They've arrested a bunch of individuals. ICE did at the beginning, and now some of these arrests are not as high as a lot of people want them to be. Well, the element of surprise is not there right now. Right now, you got the criminals, scrambling. They realize that President Trump means business, and he really is coming after him. So you do have a lot of these individuals, finding out, that, hey, I better go into hiding before I get apprehended. Fortunately, we got individuals like Tom Holman, Kristi Noem out there, getting the boots on the ground in the right places to try to find a lot of these, individuals that have been in the country. Some of them for over 4 years, we got to be honest, right? But the last 4 years, it's been a free-for-all, and they've caused a lot of chaos in our country.
Ardell Cueto, border agent and border advisor to the Federation for American Immigration Reform, here on Mornings with Richard Cross and Scott Sands. It's interesting as we talk about what you guys were doing under the Biden administration. They had it set up to where you could essentially make an appointment to commit a crime. The CBP One app let you really make an appointment to come into the country illegally. And now under the Trump administration, it's the CBP Home app, which lets you go back without being arrested and have the opportunity to come back into the country legally. So we're making some steps, and ICE is out there, a large raid yesterday in Massachusetts, a blue state that's found itself home to many illegals. So the Trump administration not only securing the border, reducing illegal border encounters by 95%, but trying to do something about the more than 10 million illegals that are already in the country.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, we say and we hear the number as 10 million. I believe it's much greater. I've been on that border. I worked the line, and I saw the apprehensions that we made. But I also remember being stuck in the processing centers, and you would hear the sensors go off. So you knew those sensors were more human traffic coming into the United States, but there was no one to respond because, as I said, they were stuck and we were stuck in processing centers. So the numbers got to be, much higher. And you got to remember, it's a lot of these individuals, they came across during the Biden administration. They asked for asylum. They got released. But the whole process of them asking for asylum is that they wanted their day in court. They wanted their procedure and their hearing heard. Under this administration, these individuals that are being arrested, their court date is now set when they get arrested. So they're being heard. Their cases are being heard. It's been found, obviously, that a lot of these cases are frivolous cases and they don't really have a true case to remain in the United States. That's what people are upset about. So did they want their cases heard, or did they just want a free-for-all and not, have to go through court, just be allowed to be in the United States for free?
Talked to my friend Tricia McLaughlin from DHS last week when I was filling in, and we talked about how Mississippi hasn't been in the spotlight really as a problem state for illegal immigration. Certainly every state is a border state today, and with I-10 running through the state and across the country, Highway 49, there is a major problem with trafficking, drug trafficking, human trafficking running through Mississippi. But thankfully, the state's been pretty cooperative with ICE, and I think under the Trump administration as well, new legislation like the Lincoln-Riley Act will help Border Patrol coordinate better with local law enforcement.
No, you're right. Look, that's what it's going to take. It's going to take an all effort. We're going to need local law enforcement to continuously help, especially in states where you don't have a big presence of Border Patrol. You don't have a big presence of ICE. Look, in my 22 years, Scott, I heard individuals come across and they picked every single state. I heard every state be called out as to their destination, where they were headed. So it's absolutely right. No state is different at this point. Individuals are going to go everywhere, and unfortunately, you also have the sanctuary states, which a lot of these individuals are going to gravitate to even more. Sanctuary states, sanctuary cities have caused that even larger magnet for criminal behavior.
So the big, beautiful bill that you mentioned, Art, I believe has about $46.5 billion for the border wall, the funding to hire, I believe, 3,000 new Border Patrol agents. How much more help will that be? You guys have been working tirelessly for the last few months, and we're working pretty inefficiently because of your mandates from the Biden administration for 4 years. So you've got a lot of catching up to do, and you guys are putting your life on the line every day on the border.
Yeah, no, look, that's going to be extremely helpful. Obviously, the more the merrier. We need more boots on the ground. At the end of the day, that's what helps. If the boots on the ground are the ones that are going to be effective with the arrests, we learned, especially from the last 4 years, that you can have the equipment out there, the sensors, the cameras, and everything else. That helps where the groups are coming across. But if you don't have the boots on the ground, strategically deployed in those areas, you're not going to be able to effectively make an arrest.
Art, it's great to hear from you. You're doing a great job. Stay safe, and give our regards to all of your fellow agents.
Thank you, my friend. And as you said, we've been doing this for a long time. You've been spreading the word for a long time, and I want to thank you and appreciate everything you do as well.
We'll talk soon. Thank you, my friend. 601-879-4395, the C Spire text line. It's Election Day. Can't remind you enough how important it is to get out to vote today. And as you go to the polls, I'd love to hear your experience. Gerard will talk to the Secretary of State later this morning as well with an update midday. And we'll have all of the election returns throughout the night here on these SuperTalk Mississippi stations and supertalk.fm. Yesterday I mentioned the story about Palantir and a database the Trump administration wants to build. I'm finally going to have time to get to that next.
From the Venable Glass Track.
No filibuster. Just everything you need to know to start your day smarter. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Well, my daddy never wrote in the old famous country song.
Richard Cross is off this week. I'm Scott Sands. We'll actually check in with Richard here in about 20 minutes or so here on Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi. Lance, I feel like it's going to be Groundhog Day every day this week as I watch what's happening in Congress. Senators back to work yesterday with a fairly clear message about the schedule ahead. It's going to be a busy month trying to chart a path forward on the giant tax and budget bill, which they hope to get to the president's desk by July 4th. Debate right now in the Senate scheduled for the week of the 23rd of June. And the talk in the hallways of Congress yesterday, from what I'm told, is that Republicans are working together as a team. They've got the 51 votes. They've just got to get it passed, and it's the bill they want. But I don't know yet what the magic formula is going to be in the reconciliation bill. A number of Republican senators said they don't like specific provisions in the House-passed bill, but I have yet to hear any better ideas on what to do. So yesterday the president was already on the phone. He called Senator Thune and others saying you need to get this done. And on Truth Social, he posted, passing the one big beautiful bill is a historic opportunity. You can already sense from what my sources on the Hill are saying, some of the action behind the scenes. Senator Josh Hawley apparently spoke with Trump about cuts to Medicaid. Ron Johnson talked with President Trump about the need for more spending cuts, saying we don't have a revenue problem, we've got a spending problem, which I think everybody with eyeballs could also say quite obviously. And I just hope that some of these cuts, I know Ron Johnson or Rand Paul are going to be fighting for more cuts, but some of the things that go into this, part of the Byrd bill, have to deal with what happens in reconciliation and what provisions have a budgetary impact, and also the rescission package. What is it? $9.4 billion in budget cuts, which could be taken up under special rules that don't allow for a filibuster. That's a plan that's been talked about for a couple of months, including cuts to public broadcasting and foreign aid. I think House Republicans really at this point, Lance, are dying to vote for something. Anything coming from Doge. That seems to be the groundswell now. I saw a comment from Eric Burleson of Missouri who said, if we can't cut NPR and PBS, what can we cut? Ben Klein adding that now's the time to codify these cuts. It's got to get done. The budget chief, Russ Vaught, met with Speaker Johnson at the Capitol yesterday and said, we're very open to sending multiple bills, but did not get into specifics on what else might be targeted in some of those cuts. Just cut something. At this point, I don't care what it is. Make some cut anywhere. I don't care at this point if it's $1. Let me see some action, because so far for the last 4 months, all we've had is talk supporting Elon Musk and Doge and saying we need to make some spending cuts, but they haven't done anything. Yeah. I think just one symbolic cut to show that you're actually going to move forward on something would begin to settle a lot of these nerves from the voters, myself included, who said, yeah, we want to make sure that we've got the tax cuts, but also we need to stop spending as much money. Show me some action. Show me some progress, and I'll give you a little bit more time. It's not an easy process, I understand, but you've been doing nothing but taking 11-day holidays since the beginning of the year, and midterms will be here before you know it. Lance, one interesting story before I get into this Palantir story, and I don't want to run out of time on that, which I have a feeling I'm already short on time.
Yeah, that one's going to be a
talk
doozy.
about the database. It's hurricane season. We mentioned the names for the Atlantic hurricanes were out yesterday. I don't know if there's any truth to this story, and we've also talked several times about FEMA money coming back to the states to control. There was a story in Reuters yesterday that the current head of FEMA, who was just put in place a couple of weeks ago, told a staff meeting Monday that he didn't know there was a hurricane season.
Really? Okay. Where was this guy again? Live in America?
David Richardson, a spokesperson, said that he was making a joke, but Reuters said key staffers were left baffled by that comment. Again, I would like to think he was joking, but sometimes you just don't know. And I guess if you've never been through a hurricane, you don't realize that there's a season. It is baffling if he actually said that. And even why you would make that joke, knowing that it would leak out and reflect poorly upon you and the administration, is you've got to be careful what you say. Even even in a closed-door staff meeting.
Yeah.
So, Lance, yesterday I mentioned this Palantir story, which they're a data analytics giant, and they got a massive contract backed by the Trump administration to build what's got to be a sprawling AI-powered federal data platform, which will link records from the IRS, Social Security, immigration, and more in what is appearing to be the most expansive civilian surveillance infrastructure in American history. I could probably spend a lot of time talking about this because I've read a lot about this because I've got concerns about this. I think that there are ways that this could be an efficient use to crack down on fraud through the use of artificial intelligence. The platform will be able to detect patterns of fraud in real time, which could save us money and identify waste in programs like Social Security, tax filings. It's a step forward to ensuring government programs aren't being abused, which is what we voted for with DOGE. And by linking immigration and other records, it could also flag potential threats and make it easier to enforce border security, protect the homeland, which should also be, I think, a key priority for us. And there's no doubt that we've seen an inefficient government to date when we're learning that records for retirement are being stored on paper files in a cave. Maybe we should modernize and centralize the data system a little bit as a way to cut through bureaucratic red tape and replace outdated spreadsheets with real-time analytics. However, let's be honest about this. When you're compiling all of this information into one database with artificial intelligence, I think that there are the opportunities for privacy concerns to be breached. It could become, there's the risk, I believe, that this could be a tool for political targeting or surveillance, especially in the polarized climate that we're in today. And I'm not saying that Donald Trump is compiling this database as a way to target his enemies. But when you have that information available, if you are skeptical, as I am, of big government, you're going to worry about who controls the data and how it's used. And without clear legal guardrails, public transparency, I'm afraid it could be easily abused by future administrations and perhaps undermine the principles of checks and balances. When you put together all of these sensitive records in one place and give it to a private company like Palantir, it raises questions about cybersecurity, and it should. A breach could expose millions of Americans' data, and if you value your own personal responsibility and protection from harm, you should be worried about that. Our records are leaking every day. We hear Social Security numbers that are leaked from sites, credit card numbers that are leaked from shopping sites. That information gets out on the dark web all the time. And what starts as fraud detection could evolve into broader surveillance and potentially infringe upon free speech, Second Amendment rights, other liberties that we should hold dear. So knowing that the government can track and analyze personal behavior in real time might discourage free expression, lawful activities. And that is in direct opposition to what we should believe in with regards to individual freedom. The question basically becomes, would you trust this system to protect your data while keeping the country safe? No. And Lance, you just jumped in. No. Yeah, that's a hard no.
That for a second. So, yeah, I'm sorry, but I don't trust the government with my information, your information. Now, if they want to do that with Russia or an enemy, feel free to. I'm more than happy to let my tax dollars, go to that. But no, I'm not for this in one way or another. None. You won't get my vote of approval. I don't care what they say it's for.
I agree. I mean, I think across the state, if you're in Hattiesburg, if you're in Tupelo, you value your privacy and you don't want people in Washington, D.C., or Jackson, for that matter, prying into your life. And I think the concept behind this Palantir system is great, or could be great, for catching fraud. But tracking everything from tax filings to Social Security benefits, if not tightly controlled, would definitely be Big Brother watching our small towns. And that's something I think we're all opposed to.
We've already seen it, too, with the Biden administration and weaponizing the IRS. So, no, I don't trust any of them. I don't care if it's Trump or Biden or anything. You don't give an administration, you don't give people that kind of power unchecked. Who's going to watch over you? Who's going to be doing their job? Is it going to be Congress? You think they're going to be sitting there questioning everything? They can't even pass a budget right now.
No. So, look, at the end of the day, we've got to find a seismic shift in how the federal government handles data instead of scattered files and outdated systems.
Well, you got to figure out if they're there to protect you or to protect their job.
Right. But you can't let a private tech company have all of this unprecedented access to sensitive data. It's going to end poorly.
Yeah.
There's got to be a solution. I'm not smart enough to figure it out, but you've got to be able to modernize the federal government, find that waste, fraud, and abuse without undermining our own privacy concerns. And meanwhile, Palantir stock has been through the roof for the last 2 weeks. We'll talk to Richard Cross. He'll check in with us next. Let us know he's still alive.
From the scene. Pour yourself a cup of coffee and get the Magnolia State's most important news of the day. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands with Richard Cross, and Lance tells me you're a big Broadway guy. Richard, I didn't know that about you.
My musical interests are varied, and I love Phantom of the Opera. Well done, Lance. Good morning, fellas.
Yeah, man, what's up?
So I'm glad you're checking in just to let your audience know that they're not going to have to put up with me much longer, but I am here all week.
I appreciate you being there very much. My plan initially was not to be out the entire week, but then travel yesterday and got a little thing going the next couple of days with some buddies, and so just made a little more sense. And I am thankful that you were available. So you guys are crushing it.
Yeah, I'm still looking for work, so I got time on my hands.
Understand.
All right, you're with some buddies. Will there be golf and cigars and beer involved?
I will confess to the golf. How about that?
Yeah, fair enough. How good are you? I bet you would really beat me. Although I'm finally learning how to drive the ball more than like 5 yards.
Yeah, I'm okay. A really, really good day is around in the mid-70s, and that doesn't happen very often. And a really bad day is probably around in the low 90s. And unfortunately, that happens more often than I would like. But kind of a mid-80s golfer. I'm about a 7 handicap.
So I just noticed you're on the phone. If you're watching on supertalk.fm, I don't know what picture Lance pulled of you. But it's Richard Cross,
He's
theatrical
happy.
music aficionado.
I'm sure it's not very flattering.
No, I actually was looking for you playing quarterback in Oxford. So anybody out there listening, y'all send me a pic of him when he was in high school. I need it very badly.
Maybe my mom is listening, Lance. She's probably the only one that still has that floating around.
Okay, I need that. Yeah, I was really wanting to highlight that.
Richard, you were calling some of the games over the weekend. You were at Coastal Carolina, and there were a couple of dust-ups off the field. Were you witness to any of those shenanigans and tensions?
No, I was at the ballpark. So it was before the first game on Sunday, and our producer was actually on the field. He was videoing some stuff with players, kind of for scouting reports that we were doing, and he came back. He's like, guys, you're not going to guess what just happened. He's like, Kevin O'Sullivan just like completely lost it on like everybody that was around him. It's kind of a bad situation. And as best I can understand it, he was frustrated that not once but twice the game time for Florida had been moved. So going into the regional, the games were slotted to be played at noon Eastern and 6 Eastern. And then they kind of adapted some along the way. The Saturday early game got moved from noon until 3 because there was a TV window that was open on the SEC network. Florida, obviously an SEC team. And so they pushed it back 3 hours. And then the next day, there was a window that opened on ESPNU. and so they moved it from noon to 1, and apparently he kind of claims that nobody told him. I don't know how that's possible, because we even talked about it on the broadcast the night before. So there was plenty of notice that it was going to be moved up an hour, and I don't know, maybe he was frustrated with how his team was playing or how he thought they were going to play, but he kind of went off on the site reps from the NCAA and the assistant athletics director from Coastal Carolina and the grounds crew and a player from East Carolina, and it kind of escalated quickly, and then thankfully it kind of diffused because it sounds like it was not headed in a good direction. There is some audio that's out there, but if we played that for you, it would just be like one consistent beep. It wouldn't like just be beeping out a word or two. So yeah, I don't know, man. It was a strange deal.
Is this Florida coach a piece of work? Because I think he's the coach I saw on video calling an opposition player a slur. Am I thinking of the right coach? I believe so.
Well, apparently you had that happen in the Tennessee Wake Forest game last night. There's a shot of the Wake Forest dugout using head coach using a slur for a Tennessee player as he's getting ready to come to the plate. So there's a lot of that. Tension's kind of running high this time of year. And yeah, Kevin O'Sullivan has never been known as a guy that's, like just laid back and chill. He is very, very intense. And they've won a bunch of games. But it was out of line, to say the least, on Sunday.
Heartbreaking night last night for Southern Miss fans, for Ole Miss fans. But I think Hattiesburg and Oxford really represented the state well in the regionals. It would have been great economically for the cities and for the programs to advance to and host super regionals, but nothing to be ashamed of. Great seasons for all three big Mississippi schools. PRCC, Colin also doing well this season.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting, right? You get to the end of the year and you feel like, okay, you put kind of the baseball stories to bed, and yet you've got the obviously really big story in Starkville with the hiring of Brian O'Connor, and that's going to continue to be something that state fans are fired up for, kind of looking to the future. Last night in Oxford, I went to the game with my family, and it was it was disappointing. Yeah, there was a lot of optimism going into last night's game after the way that Ole Miss swung the bat on Sunday nights and beating Murray State. I think there are a lot of people that thought it was just show up and keep swinging it.
I had Ole Miss minus 3.5.
I saw that. Lance, I got that $10 for you, by the way.
Thank you. I will need
next time I see you.
I'll hold it for you.
Yeah, that'd be good. Don't spend it all in one place. It didn't work out that way. And look, there's a ton of credit that goes to Murray State. I mean, clearly they don't have some of the same advantages that Ole Miss has got, but they played baseball. They played the game the way it was supposed to be played. They made all the plays defensively, great approach at the plate. They can really hit. And they brought, the first two pitchers that came into the game were the first two starters from earlier this week. It was their two best guys, and they just kind of went and pitched on guts, and both pitched pretty well. To say that Ole Miss was a slow starter last night would be an understatement. But, man, when Braden Randall hit the 3-run home run in the 8th inning, you thought, all right, they're going to get it done. And to your point, Scott, I mean, it's not just it would have been winning a regional. It would have been winning a regional and getting to play in your home ballpark for the first time in 16 years, I think it is, for a super regional. So that part of it was disappointing. But if you go with a wider lens and you rewind to February and you kind of had taken a poll of Ole Miss fans and said, hey, you win 16 games in the SEC, you make a run in the SEC tournament, not only do you get back into postseason play, but you actually host a regional, I think you'd have been like 99.5 out of 100 that would have signed up for that and said, yes, absolutely, I'm in. And then for Southern Miss, not quite enough offense. I thought for where they were in the regional, to have gone through the losers bracket and to get to Monday night, the pitching was pretty good. I mean, to only give up 5 runs, it feels like you got a shot. And Cueto hits the 2-run home run there in the 9th, and it's like, all right, got to find a way to get one more, and just couldn't. So the baseball season officially comes to an end. And Pearl River Community College finished national runner-up as well. So chance for them. They were really close to winning their second national championship in 3 years or 4 years, and they finished number 2 nationally. So a lot of good baseball this spring. It was a lot of fun.
That's Richard Cross here on his own show. I'm Scott Sands. Today, Election Day. That's always a weird way to introduce you. It's Election Day today. Quickly, your thoughts on these 200 municipal elections. It's so critical to get out to vote today because everything starts at a local level. And I know turnout for these elections mid-year is always lower than the big national elections that get all the attention, but some big races across the state today.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, going into the primaries, so much of the conversation was about Jackson. What's it going to be in Jackson? Jackson feels like a foregone conclusion. Like today's just a formality, right. And all of the focus now seems to be on Gulfport.
Yeah,
you got Benny
said,
Thompson
hold
and Stacey Abrams. Say again?
I said Gulfport was like, hold my beer.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and, okay, a Mississippi politician showing up to support a Democrat candidate, I guess that's not crazy. The Stacey Abrams thing, I think, is pretty off-putting. But Hugh Keating's got his work cut out for him today. And, of course, you had the allegations back and forth, right? The Republican Party, they were, complaining about the vouchers for food. You can't buy votes. And then the Democrats complain that the letter from the Island View CEO goes out to all the employees, and that's election interference. Plenty of bad blood. This is as almost all local elections are. It's about turnout, right? You talked about the low numbers. Who can get their people out? Is it going to be the Democrats with the push from kind of the national party in a local election? Or Gulfport residents going to rally around Hugh Keating and get him across the finish line? It's going to be really, really interesting to watch.
Richard Cross will be back on Monday. I was promised by Lance that you would sing Broadway for me.
Don't you hate it when your producer lies to you?
Nah, he'll do it off air.
Let it out, Richard.
Have a great day, guys. Great catching up with you. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Lance.
Have a great week. Wrap things up here. Mornings with Richard Cross and Scott Sands. You can find me on X at Scott Sands Media. And the C-Spire text line is open, 601-879-4395. Love to hear your experiences at the polls as you get out to vote today.
From the Venable Glass.
Politics each morning. Mornings with Richard Cross. Super Talk, Mississippi.
June, another sleepy, dusty Delta day. I was out chopping cotton and my brother was baling hay. And at dinner time we stopped and walked back to the house to eat.
Oh, yeah.
And Mama hollered at the back door, y'all remember to wipe your feet.
I'm going to at least let it get to the hook.
And then she said, I got some news this morning from Choctaw Ridge. Today, Billy Joe McAllister jumped off the Tallahatchie Bridge.
Lance apparently getting a lot of requests for the Ode to Billy Joe today.
Hey, and as promised,
the June 3rd reference,
as promised. But we had conversations ongoing, so I couldn't. I mean, I played it, but it wasn't heard very well. So there you go, Ode to Billy Joe.
So
Bobby Jensen.
I mean, people remember that from 1967. That today is the day Billy Joe jumped off the Tallahatchie Bridge.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been doing radio a long time, and I have some obscure music knowledge and remember some weird lyrics, especially from the 80s, but I'm not sure I would have made that connection at any point today.
We have very smart listeners. They'll let you know. They'll let you know.
And I think, if I recall,
the song begins on June the 3rd, a summer day in Mississippi Delta, yeah.
It's not necessarily a true story, but I believe it was based on an actual event. Emmett Till, am I remembering that correctly?
I'm not 100% sure on the backstory on that one. So, yeah, I'll believe you.
We've discussed some weird music trivia randomly for no apparent reason today. If you missed it earlier, we were talking about the CIA connections to bands during the Cold War. Yeah. Blood, Sweat, and Tears touring the Eastern Bloc as agents of the CIA. Chuck So did you find the name of the documentary? I may watch that today.
Yeah, I'll get it. You keep talking. It was my fault on that.
And the Blood, Sweat, and Tears one that I haven't watched is called What the Heck Happened to Blood, Sweat, and Tears? And that documents their time as apparent reported CIA agents.
Yeah.
And the other aspect, the Winds of Change by the Scorpions may have actually been written by the CIA. So I don't know how any of that came up this morning, but it did.
Well, it just, the way the world works, isn't it? There's a lot of craziness and things out there. It takes a lot of digging and finding. Some of it's true, some of it's not. But, it's always fascinating to find something, that is unique, and you feel like you've uncovered something. Dangerous Mind, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. That's the name of the movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, excellent flick. Go find that. It is on, I'll tell you, Pluto for free, and then the others are pay. So go to the free Pluto, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. Excellent movie. Sam Rockwell, excellent actor, though. Love him. He's crazy and everything.
So this story caught my attention. I'm single, and I am admittedly and embarrassingly on some of the dating apps. Tinder has just announced that they are testing a feature to allow people to filter by height.
Oh.
So as a short fat guy, I'm not sure how I feel about this, really. They're not going to enforce what height you report on the app, but they will allow women to filter out short men.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, the pool just gets smaller, huh? How many people are honest on those things is my question. I've never really used it.
I have artificially intelligence-generated pictures as my profile pictures on some of the dating apps, I will admit. I'm not sure. It hasn't helped me, but it certainly hasn't hurt either. I think Hinge already lets you filter by height, but some guys... Some short kings, obviously up in short arms over this. One person on social media saying, justice for all of us short kings. And another said, it's so hypocritical that men are demonized for having preferences, but it's okay for women. Imagine if Tinder added a weight filter.
Isn't this discrimination? Can you do this? I mean, can you discriminate in dating these days?
Dating apps are just absolutely brutal, and it's...
Well, the weight is for the women have all of the power, right? I mean, the guys are just like, hey, look at me, man, I'm here.
This is just a tool to make everybody's experience a little bit more efficient. But as a short guy, I will tell you, there are some things that are great about dating a short guy.
Yeah.
You
fire off, man. Let's see what you get.
You get the shower caddy to yourself because it's not like I could reach it. You always have someplace to put your drink on top of.
There you go. Yeah.
If you can't find your heels, you could borrow his.
You got some lifts in there.
At the company Christmas party, coworkers will think you brought a real life elf.
Yeah. One that eats well, right?
And the top great thing about dating a short guy, for Halloween, you could go as Luke and Yoda. So there are benefits to dating a short guy. As a short guy, I just thought I would share that with you. We'll have election results.
You need an 80s girlfriend so she can have the Luke Skywalker haircut.
Election results after the polls close tonight at 7. Please be sure to get out to vote in all of these municipal elections across the state. You can get the results on all of our social media, supertalk.fm, and we'll have updates throughout the night. And, of course, tomorrow morning, a recap on all of these SuperTalk Mississippi stations. Find me on X at Scott Sands Media. Lance, have a great day. There's no baseball. We can all get a nap tonight. I mean, it's sad that there's no baseball, but it's not going to be a late night watching baseball, unfortunately. Right. Back tomorrow morning for Richard Cross, 6 to 9 here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Have a great Tuesday.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.